What's going on YouTube? This is Chaos-Reighn here, and I know it's been a little bit of time. It's just been pretty crazy for my sleep schedule, trying to get used to things, and I've been just pretty active um, doing other stuff, but making videos pretty much. But I just wanted to kind of catch up and bring you all some new content from my channel, along with update a build to a lot of people, and I'm calling this the budget immortal build. It is relatively cheap, inexpensive. You can make min-maxing improvements and use it on pretty much any other skill set or melee skill or anything that you choose that you want to do it on. So, without further ado, I'm just going to go right into it. We're going to go right into my hideout, and I'm going to just start showing you what I got going. Now, I will say that this build is extremely cheap. My variant is not. So let's start. We do have a very high 509 Fizz Arborix. This is a lightning arrow setup. I switch between lightning arrow and ice shot, but I feel like lightning arrow is better for clear when I'm not a deadeye. Ice shot's better for clear when I am a deadeye. You can do ice shot raider, but I'm doing a Pathfinder, so this is what I'm doing. Linked with LA damage with attacks, inspiration, phantasmal lightning arrow, cold pin, chain, and hypothermia. We have 2 taming rings. We have a high desire with increased effect non-curse auras and regenerate life per second, which is, going in tandem with our setup. We are using lightning arrow, hits 2 additional enemies enchant, so we have even more clear. We are currently using Yoke of Suffering. However, you can choose to opt out of this and use a Pandemonious. Now, unfortunately, if I take this off, one of my gems in my helm becomes unusable. So I will say, if you do decide to go this route, just be wary that you will kind of lose that out. We are anointed with Fangs of Frost, but you can kind of just do any lightning anointment if you want to do lightning arrow. I'm just a hybrid build, and I shock and chill. We have a Void Flesher with additional arrow, and we are using the Oros charge. I'll get into that in a second. Our gloves are just typical res gloves. We have a little bit of life on the prefixes. We have the damage against shield enemies. I haven't even divined them yet. And the Headhunter. Now, you don't have to use the Headhunter. As with any build, you can start this with literally budget stuff. I was using this setup to farm towers and basically take Z DPS of, or zero damage essentially. You do take damage, but the way I have it set up, the way I had it set up was a little bit different. So this is what I would recommend, something along the lines of this. Now, you do not need the flask effect duration. I just got this for 10C, and then I hit it with an essence, a couple essences, and hit what I need. The one mod you need is right there below the strength. So I needed strength, so I hit it with strength essence, and I got the reduced flash charges used. So when you have enough flash charges reduction, along with enough flash charges gain, you get an effect like this, where our flasks are just automatically popping off. But we're taking this one step further because we are actually getting life back for this via the Ascendancy. We are taking a total of 6 times 5 flasks for 30% of our overall life total gained every time we pop a flask. So on top of this, we get a flask when we do a crit, which is very often. We also have basically corrupted blood and bleed immunity, and we have elemental ailment immunity with this. Along with that, we do have the increased movement speed during flask effect, attack speed during flask effect, and we have reduced elemental damage taken. So because we are a Pathfinder, this is really good. Now, you can do the Mage Blood setup to where you're using 3 elemental flasks, but in my experimentation, I only really needed 2, one being fire, one being lightning. Now, cold is annoying to deal with, but if you can tell here, we are still well over res capped with pushing on a little bit under our chaos res, and you can kind of change that up as you see fit. You don't have to use the taming. I can obviously switch my amulet and I'm still res capped and stuff like that, so you can kind of see what you need to do there. Our tree is just a basic Pathfinder tree. For bow builds specifically, I am taking all the Pathfinder nodes here, here, here. We are only taking one flask mastery, which is an increased effect, and then we have one flask cluster, which has alchemist genius, which is increased effect and flash charges gained, And then we have increased flash charges gained. This is basically mandatory for the loop to work properly. If we go up here, it's just your standard Lion Eye Fall setup. We are getting this Lion Eye Fall so we can take all of these claw nodes and sword nodes and transform them into bow nodes, giving us a bunch of extra attack speed and multi and crit chance. Now, because we have not one but two full wheels, we have a lot of DPS centralized in like, a couple small areas, and it's really beneficial. The last class area we're taking is the natural remedies, which is increase effect, and you remove maim and hinder when you use a flask. This is really good on certain bosses, so I would recommend trying it out. Then we have our life wheel. We are anointing Fangs of Frost for cold damage, cold pin. We have point blank. Then for our first cluster, we have hatred reservation. For our second cluster is up here. We have grace reservation, and our third cluster is determination reservation. Now we are also using this, which is cold blood killer, deep chill, widespread destruction. In a perfect world, you actually want this to be blanketed snow and anything else. It doesn't matter, just anything else. I would highly, highly recommend investing in something like this. I just have been too lazy to buy one, and as far as rolling one, I just keep forgetting to do so. I like to play the game more than I like to sit there and craft, so yeah. And then we have here our 4 nodes for our inspired learning, so we have a little bit of buffs going on. Now, what I've been using this mostly on is Delve. So because we're doing Delve, we need phasing, and that's why we dropped our Sapphire Flask for this. The reason we didn't drop Ruby or Topaz is because Topaz, there's a lot of lightning damage that can just one-tap you if it rolls a high hit. And even if you reduce it by your natural res, sometimes it can either one-tap you or set you really low. As far as this goes, there's Burning Ground, and there's just Ignite, which can really hurt you until you get a flask to pop, but as we have it set up, our flasks are always going to pop. So now we're going to get into the boots. So the boots say gain adrenaline for 3 seconds when ward breaks. Well, ward will break for a couple of reasons. 1, when someone hits us and breaks it, and 2, when we refresh this, and when that refreshes, it just restores our ward and breaks the last ward, so on and so forth, along with getting hit, will just kind of keep us on a permanent adrenaline. If you hold L3, you'll see adrenaline deals 100% increased damage, 25% attack cast and movement speed, and you have 10% additional physical damage reduction. Now, because we are wanting to take hits to proc all of these and basically be immortal, there's a couple of things to kind of like notice here. So if you can tell, we have no evasion, and that's because of our Arborix giving us iron reflexes. However, we have 86% damage reduction, which goes up as soon as we start getting some frenzy charges. We have roughly 89% physical damage reduction as soon as we get to our max frenzy charges, which is 3. And at that point, we're just pretty much set in stone. We can do whatever we want and kind of have fun with the game. Now, let's go ahead and give you a showcase of what this feels like and looks like. I will say, first and foremost, the damage, even though I have a very high PDPS, is kind of... It's kind of there, but it's kind of not. Now, I would recommend, if you can afford it, you get all your awakened gems. I just didn't want to go out and buy extra awakened gems, so I only have awakened gems on my single target. Some of the awakened gems I would want to buy are pretty expensive, so I just kind of kept myself to a budget and making it work. Only non-budget thing is the Headhunter, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Now, you can use Pandemonious again, and Pandemonious will probably give you more damage than this because you're already shocking with Lightning Arrow. I would recommend looking into that if that is your cup of tea. Just be sure you kind of are aware of, the nuances of that. So let's see, how much int do I have so I can see if I can afford this. If I take this off, we have 94. So level 7 Hydrosphere uses 104. I'd have to de-level it, but we'll worry about that a little later. So for now, let's go ahead and make sure all our auras are on. If you can't tell, Hatred. See, Hatred, Grace, Determination, Herald Device, and Precision. We are still able to attack, so that's fine. Now, there are a couple of modifiers that can kind of bypass this, and one of the bigger ones is if enemies have crit Now we do have reduction to crit, and we have and in one setup we actually have immunity to curses, but currently we do not have any immunity to curses, sadly. I believe in all of our setup we just have corrupted blood, attack speed, armor, and more res. Now the more res is actually not ideal. That's just what I rolled on this one, and I don't want to roll over a T1 roll, so I just kept it. Now what this means though is we can actually drop a taming and put on more damage for that. Maybe a crit multi ring or a shaper crit multi crit chance, you know, with flat cold or whatever. And so yeah, the last I did forget to mention the last part you need is you need the enchanted with use when reach full and gain 7 charges when you are hit. And this is basically what it feels like and looks like. This is our movement speed before flash pop. Now that's when it flashes. We're relatively fast, but this is what happens. Now we have permanent phasing too, so we basically can't die, and we walk through enemies. So, and as far as the damage goes, this is a tier 16 map, and we're able to delete all the content in the T16 map.
They are coming.
Just kind of give you a little bit of a showcase on what it looks like. I will say there are bosses or modifiers that make bosses be able to one-tap you, but with only 3,000 health, you know, you can expect that, you know, if you're one-tapped, you're one-tapped regardless of circumstance at that point. Ooh, we just got a 5,800 hit. That's pretty nice. Well, as you saw there, we froze for a second, but we still didn't take any damage. I will say that this is relatively easy. Scourge has no real problems until you ramp up to about 200 and those multipliers start getting insane. Of course, you know, with certain other modifiers it gets even worse. Now, as you see, this we do have Headhunter, so we end up scaling attack speed even more. We're going to go ahead and hop this again. Alright, looks like we finished our master mission.
My mana is gone.
And then we go back in the Krangle. We are one-tapping white packs, and some of the rares even get one-tapped. Depends on the crit, obviously. Normally I don't go this far into it, but you know, I'm just kind of showcasing, so I'll show you a little bit more of the map and before I go back. As you see, our bossing damage isn't you know, delete worthy. We don't sit here and delete bosses, but we are able to do respectable damage. I've been doing delve, and I can solo pretty much every boss except for Owl, and I think if I you know, have a little bit more DPS or get to learn to fight a little better or be a little tankier, I don't know exactly what I need because he really just one taps me. I think the problem is that I can't survive a hit, so I gotta probably fix that. But Once I get that figured out, whatever I need to figure out on that, I'll be able to do all three bosses without any issues. Any kind of attack that is a barrage-esque type attack where there's a lot of hits, you'll never die from. Only thing you can die from easily is degen, so yeah, it's just kind of something to look out for if you're deciding to copy this build. And pretty much, without further ado, that was that. This is my near immortal flask finder build with a little bit of tech, and I hope that you guys enjoy it. And if you have any kind of questions or anything like that, leave a comment, and I'll try to get back to you. Have a good one.